This week's episode is titled The Ruthless Pursuit of Blood with All a Child's Demanding. Coming up, I'm talking with the new star of the show, Bailey Bass, who plays Claudia. We'll get into the trials and tribulations of perpetual puberty. Hi, Bailey. So nice to meet you. I'm Naomi.
Hi, Naomi. How you doing?
Oh, good now that you're here, girl. Now, before I get into my hard-hitting journalism, okay, because I am just, if not hard-hitting, okay? If you had the choice to be turned into a vampire at any age, what age would you, Bailey, choose, knowing you'd stay that age forever?
First off, I don't necessarily want to live forever.
Me
that's just too much. Yeah.
Yes.
Life is precious because we don't live forever. So if you take that away, which we talk about a lot on the show, like, what do these people turn into? And Anne Rice, even, like, when she talks about how crazed these 200-year-old vampires are, like, they start going insane because it's like, what do you have? Like, what does love mean anymore if you can live forever? But if I had to choose, I'm only 19, and I feel like every year, especially since I'm still in my adolescence, I grow and I change, so it's definitely hard to say. But I am a Twilight fan, so let's just do it at, like, 19 and get to go to high school over and over again.
Okay, no, Bailey, honey, that's a young person's folly. No, honey, you don't want to go to high school again?
I'm a huge Twilight fan. I love the vampires. Also, like, they rule high school because they've done it so many times. And I didn't go to high school. And even though my brother always says, he's like, Bailey, it's not like the movies, which it's not. It really is not. I just would love to be like, just come in, go to different states, different countries, and get to experience what that's like.
That is so funny. I mean, as a vampire fan, I do love Twilight as well, even though I was a bit older when, I was reading the books. So it was funny because I was like,
the books?
Yes.
I was like 10 watching Breaking Dawn Part 2 like this with my eyes closed. I was like, oh, honeymoon.
Well, it's funny because one thing I like about this show so much, but in general with vampires, what can kill me with Twilight is Edward's like always brooding. And it's like, honey, you're hot. You're living forever. Have some fun with it.
Yeah, but Lestat and Louis do that too. Claudia's the one that's out here like just doing her thing.
Well, exactly. I mean, how did you find yourself relating to Claudia's journey?
I do remember what it's like to be that young. But then again, Claudia matures so quickly, and there's something special about her growth. But I think everyone can connect to the fact that she wants her own power, but then she still needs the person that raised her, Louis. And I feel like as kids are growing up, we have a lot of those moments where we're like, oh my gosh, we love our parents so much. We need them. They have gotten us to this point in our lives. But who are we without our parents? And that's something everyone can connect to when they watch this show.
Well, this is why, honey, we have you on the pod, because you have to tell the people, okay? You have to tell the people what went into the art. They can't just be thinking you just show up one day and you're like, look at me, I'm a vampire teen. I mean, I assume Jacob, who plays Louis, and Sam, who plays Lestat, had already been filming for a while before you joined the set. So what was it like coming onto the show? And I mean, this episode has you really thrown into the deep end.
My first scenes on set was the scene where Claudia almost kills herself. The scene... Yes.
No, the first one?
That was my first week.
Wow.
My first week was the scene where Claudia almost kills herself. The scene where she gets changed and I'm like burned.
Yeah.
And then the scene where she kills Charlie. That was all in the first 10 days.
Oh
yes.
My God.
So, Bailey Bass, this is your first time on a show. You're just gonna do all these things.
Yep. Trial by fire. It was very deep end, but in a way, like, hearing it, like, I know that I would be terrified, but at the same time, it's almost like, let's do all the hard stuff first. While your energy is there, you're excited, you don't have too much time to get in your head about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, dive in. Okay, let's do this. Welcome to New Orleans.
But I will say, the scene at the end of episode 4 that people see is not the scene that I did the first week. We redid it. And because Roland Jones, the writer, was like, this is not powerful enough. At the end, Lestat and Louis came out of their coffins and they were just stunned by what they were seeing, which is Claudia burning her arm. But we changed it, as people will see in episode 4, if they're not there. This is a moment she has herself, which is very powerful, because where she ends, where she's screaming. And that was the first take. Rollin was like, I just want you to yell. And I was just like, literally my voice is cracking yelling, because it's like, I just want to be free. She just wants to feel something because she feels like nothing.
Let me tell you something, you stuck-up, flower-covered, $3 fancy fucking paper diary. I'm doing just fine. And how do I know that? Because the first man I killed called me the devil. And the last boy I killed, the last boy I'll ever love in this world, called me an angel. So that means I'm on the right path. And that means there's so much more fun out there to have. I'm just getting started.
How much time did you, Jacob, and Sam have to talk about the family dynamic, to hang out, to get a feel for each other before the camera started rolling?
Barely any time, because I came in to New Orleans in episode 3 and they were already there for episode 1 and 2. And we work so much that anytime we're not on set, we want to sleep. I mean, if I'm being completely honest. But I do remember the first time I did my first scene on set playing Claudia, and Jacob is like clapping, and I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, you're here, like we're all together. And I was like, it was really precious.
Oh my God, he's an angel. He's an angel. That's so sweet. But it does definitely also set up this kind of like, you know, Louis. And him doing that is very much like, okay, this is our dynamic. Louis is excited for Claudia. He has hopes pinned on Claudia. Claudia is going to fill in a God-sized hole. And Claudia did not sign up for that.
You know, that's Louis, the person that's raising her. She doesn't have everything that she owned before she was turned into a vampire. That is gone. So everything that she knows about society is through Louis's mouth.
I want to talk about the extent to which you built this family unit with Jacob and Sam. First of all, here's my question for you. Why do you think Louis even had Lestat turn Claudia? Because when I talked to Jacob, I go, Jacob, does Louis not know what a teenage girl is? I was like, if you want a friend till the end, it is not a teenage girl. Okay. So you have got to think this through. For you, what do you think it was, you know, when you're doing the work in episode 4, which is pretty much the introduction to these two men, this relationship, and then Claudia's place in that relationship? You know, what are your first thoughts?
Thoughts on them turning?
Yeah, like, because it's true, like Claudia's girl having fun, but at the same time, as we know from the end, Claudia's angry. You know, some years pass and she gets mad.
Well, we see that evolution of all the feelings she feels. And I always go back to the fact of the science. I love science in school. And her prefrontal cortex will never develop because they stop that. And the prefrontal cortex is what, you know, makes adults choose right from wrong. Before that, teenagers, they just go straight from emotion. And that is something that I remembered over and over again playing Claudia, because that part of her brain will never develop. So yes, she's maturing based on her experiences, but she will always be someone that acts by emotion first and then is like, wait, so I wasn't supposed to do that because of this? Because, wait, did I hurt your feelings? Right. You know, like she's just going straight from how she feels. And she feels deeply, very deeply, which is why her feelings are so grand, you know, which is why when she hurts Charlie, it's like the end of the world for her, which is why when she finally feels love from someone else besides Louis and Lestat, it's like she doesn't even know how to express how incredible that is.
What do you think Louis is trying to get from Claudia that he can't get from Lestat?
He wants a sister. His relationship with Grace is not, it's just tearing away bit by bit. And he just wants a sister, and that's what he gets from Claudia. but then he also wants this family unit.
Mm-hmm.
But then it gets really dark because Lestat, honestly, it's so
true.
twisted.
I've seen the whole thing, honey. It gets dark.
Yeah, it's because Lestat, think about it, Lestat owned Louis.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I think Louis wanted to own someone. And in some parts, you see Louis does own Claudia, but she goes by feeling. She doesn't think things through, that she's kind of like trying to rip out of this box.
You're wondering if your nails will be like that forever. And the answer is yes.
How'd you do that?
You'll do it too, in time, my little milkweed. I'll teach you. Just like I taught Louis here. But not if we're going to have family secrets.
We're a family?
Yeah. But with no secrets.
All right. So what's that for?
That's where we burn bodies.
Why do we burn bodies?
Now, I was curious as to, you've talked about building Claudia, right? And doing the backstory, doing the writing. How much did you engage with or utilize Anne Rice's books? You know, because obviously your Claudia's older, your Claudia's Black. It's a different situation, but at the same time, you got a whole 13-book series. So it's like, how do you kind of choose to engage with that and when?
It's different, but the essence is still there. Claudia is still raging. Because we chose to age her up, because Roland chose to age her up, she's stuck with these raging hormones. And that's something that's different, but I think was very, very necessary to truly understand. We get to touch upon what it's like to be a woman, the only woman in a household of men.
Right.
You know, we get to touch upon what sexism feels like sometimes, what it feels like to be the only one. You know, she doesn't really have any girlfriends. She doesn't have a mom. And you see how that affects Claudia. Mm-hmm. And I think it was just really interesting to play around with that. When I read the books, I annotated them like crazy.
Wow.
Like crazy. Anytime Claudia felt something deeply, anytime she loves art. Mm-hmm. That's something that you learn about Claudia when you read the books. And that's something that I add into my backstory. And then I made a Google sheet of comparing everything in the book and everything. I did so much writing. Very type A. Everything in the book and everything in the script. And then I would compare what lines are the same. Because Roland is a huge fan of Anne Rice's books. Yeah. And he was very intentional about even like using her writing in the scripts.
Right. I mean, there's definitely a lot of love for Anne's original books in the show. But you know what? I have a lot of love for you. Because you know what? Things take a dark turn for Claudia as this episode goes on. She falls for a cute boy, but then, well, let's listen to a clip.
I bit him, and now he's...
It's easy to get carried away when you're young and in love.
Please save him. Turn him.
I can't.
You can. You did it to me.
He's dead. You didn't have to kill him. You killed him completely.
Let's start.
Just try, please.
You drained him dry. Now go on. Clean up after yourself. Remember this? His face as it melts. This is why we never get close to mortals. Because sooner or later, they end up dead.
Punch me in the gut, okay?
It's really hard to hear those, especially because we're listening to it. And now I'm hearing it with the score as well, which makes it, you know...
I can't take it. For a character that we've only had an episode of, Claudia goes through every trial imaginable. I mean, my God. You know, this vampire life has come with a whole lot of strings and a whole lot of destruction. And one of the things, you know, you call Claudia calls Louis like Papa Louis and then Uncle Les. And this for me is one of those scenes where, you know, you do see the difference in their relationships. Because on one hand, Lestat is educating Claudia. At first, it seems like he's nice, right? Where it's like it's easy to get carried away when you're young and in love. But then he really does seem to be relishing in her being in pain. You know, like really kind of tossing it off like, okay, clean up after yourself. You know, like it's like he's having a little fun with that moment in a way that to me really dictated the relationship between the two of them from that moment on.
Yeah, the power dynamics between Lestat and Claudia, they changed and it's a flow, and he has a lot of power right now and he uses it to advantage. It's almost like he gets off from it. Mm-hmm. He likes having the power and he needs to establish it and make Claudia sit down, and she refuses to. Mm-hmm. So they're always gonna butt heads because of that.
Right, right. Do you think that Lestat is right when he says, you know, this is why we can never get close to mortals, because sooner or later they end up dead?
I'm never going to think Lestat is right. I freaking can't stand it. It's like...
Me too. Me too.
Literally, like I am like when I watched the episodes, it was 2 months after filming, and I just was like, "Are you effing kidding me?" Like I'm that viewer that's like in the screen, like you better, don't you dare. You know, it's like I'm watching reality TV, and I even remember reading the script, and it's just like. I'm like gasping and I'm making inaudible noises because it's just like, are you freaking kidding me?
I know. One last thing. We like to end the show with what we call a little taste, which is the vampire's specialty, temptation, okay? And I would love if you could give the viewers, without giving any spoilers, a taste of what's to come. What is something coming that you think people are going to be surprised by, something that they're not expecting?
The biggest part of this show is the fact that there are no villains, but then maybe we are all villains. And it's proving how complex all relationships are. Everything is based on perspective. How we feel about each other is based on perspective. And Roland did an incredible job of showing Louis, Lestat, and Claudia's perspectives and why we do the things that we do. And that mastermind is going to play into every single episode. It's really just an ongoing chess game, and you're just on the edge of your seat seeing who's going to win.
Absolutely. Oh, my God. Edge of my seat is right, Annie. Now, Bailey. Bailey. Thank you so much for coming, taking time and talking to me, all things episode 4.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I learned a lot while I'm sitting here talking to you. It's been dope.